Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and sorry in advance that the scenery won't be as pretty today. I totally did like the stereotypical thing that every unemployed YouTuber does, and I slept in way too late today, and so because I have a late start, I don't have time to drive up one of the canyons, so sorry about that. Regardless of that, let's get into the main topic of the video, and before I discuss anything, I just want to put forth a quick disclaimer that I am not claiming to be any sort of financial analyst. I'm not claiming to be any sort of financial expert. This is just basically purely based on my personal experience with it, what has happened so far, and then also my personal experience with working in the car industry for about 3 years, and then obviously just researching into all this before posting this video. So again, quick disclaimer on that. I don't want anyone to think that, again, I'm any sort of like financial expert. This is just kind of like something, I guess, more on a personal note. With that being said, let's get into the topic, which is, should you downsize your car with the current economy, just with everything that is happening? And I guess on a definition basis, what I mean by downsizing for today's video purpose is essentially doesn't mean going to like a physically smaller car. What it means is either lowering your monthly obligation, so lowering your monthly payment, or basically giving you more cash in hand. And this could look like a whole number of things. So let's say that you do have a payment on a car, and let's say you refinance that payment to a lower payment. And I don't want to get into this too much because I know there's going to be a whole lot of arguments in the comment section about how refinancing a car is a horrible idea. There's some stuff there, and I need to make a whole dedicated video to that. But that's the first way, right? You could refinance your car to a lower payment. Now, the next thing that you could do that would essentially downsize is just buying a less expensive car. So then again, you lower your payment that way. Or I guess what people consider the smartest thing to do would be to completely get rid of your car, so then you don't have a car payment at all, and probably picking up like a really cheap car, like what we'd call like a hoopty, basically. So just a really cheap, inexpensive car, so then you have a bunch of cash in hand. So all of those things are just downsizing, right? Whether you are basically putting yourself in a situation where you have more cash in hand, or you are lowering your overall monthly obligation to a vehicle. Now that we have the definitions and all of the disclaimers out of the way, let's get into a bunch of different situations and what I would personally do if I was in those situations. So the first situation, and this is a situation that I'm really sorry if you are in this situation, I feel for you, is let's say that because of what's happening with this mysterious illness that you have just gotten laid off. You don't have a job anymore, and let's say that you have no other sources of income. So all of a sudden you don't have any money coming in. I mean, not extra, but you don't have any money coming in. This is where downsizing, and if I had like a chart for this, you'd be like in the red part of the chart. This is where I would say downsizing is pretty much a necessity. And that's just because obviously if you don't have any cash coming in, and really that means that you don't have any cash to pay for what you have, so you're gonna have to get rid of stuff. You're gonna have to make some big lifestyle changes. And the sad part of it is, with everything being closed down right now, I wouldn't say that it's impossible to get a job, but I would say that right now it would be very difficult to get a job if you got laid off for some reason. So if this is you and you are in this situation, I can understand it's going to be extremely stressful, but that is what I would definitely do, is just start downsizing. Not just from like an automobile standpoint, I would pretty much downsize everything in your life. Just cut all costs out as much as possible and just basically live on the bare necessities until you get yourself into a financial situation where you are earning money again. And again, I feel like this is kind of like worst case scenario, but the thing that makes me really sad and that I feel for people is I'm sure that there is a lot of people that this is going to happen to, just because of how the economy's been the last few years, and just because of like buyer confidence with everything that has happened. So moving on from the first circumstance to the second circumstance, let's say that you didn't get laid off, but let's say that your income just starts diminishing, right? You don't get as many hours at work, or maybe you're self-employed like I am, and you just aren't getting as much or earning as much revenue as you were before. In this situation, this is where you kind of have to look at things from, I would say, a neutral perspective and an objective perspective. And what I mean by that is really dig into your finances and see how much you're spending with everything. And you should already know this, hopefully, if you are just being financially literate. And what this really means is see how much money you're spending on a regular basis. And what you then need to do is obviously take your new income. So if you're earning less money, you then need to base your budget off of your new income, not based off of what you used to be making, but based off of what you're making now. And if you're not making enough money to afford the car that you have now, then that probably means that you need to downsize to a less expensive car. And I know this sounds like common sense, what I'm saying, but there's a lot of people that just don't even think about these things. And it's crazy to me, but it's just true. So if you're still making money, but your income has definitely lowered, then this is the point where I would definitely consider cutting certain things out of your life and potentially just getting a less expensive vehicle than what you have now. Now, moving on from that, let's go into the next situation. And I feel like this situation is probably going to be most people. And that's just based on my, I guess, not theory, but my hypothesis for how long this situation is going to last for. I really just hope, and I don't think this is going to be something that lasts for years and years. And so what I think is going to happen is most people are still going to have a job. They might have a little bit less income, but they're still going to be making about the same amount of money that they made before. However, they're not going to have a dedicated savings and a dedicated emergency fund. And this is where I think a lot of people are going to fall under. And by the way, if you're in the last two categories, you could also be in this category too. And where this is let's say that you still have a steady source of income, but you don't have an emergency fund. And what an emergency fund is where you have money set aside for monthly expenditures just in case you don't make any money. And just based off of what the average American has in their savings account, which I think is like less than $10,000, I doubt that covers 6 months of most people's expenses. I know that, well, that almost covers 6 months of my expenses, but not quite. So if the average person in the US has less than $10,000 in their savings account, they don't have a big enough emergency fund. And this is where, again, I think that you might need to consider downsizing with this current situation. And the reason I say that is you need to do everything you can to build up that emergency fund so that in case in the coming months you get laid off or your income just drastically lowers to the point where you just can't sustain what you were doing before, so that you're fully prepared for everything that is happening. So again, if you don't have an emergency fund that's at least 6 months, if not 12 months, then I would definitely consider, again, cutting things out of your life so you can save some money, so you can build up that emergency fund. And again, that might lead into you needing to purchase a less expensive car and obviously get rid of your more expensive vehicle. And I guess the biggest thing I basically push forward with this video is I'm not trying to fearmonger. I hope that this video isn't freaking anyone out. And again, I don't think that this is going to be a long term. I can't predict that. Nobody can predict that. You could be the most intelligent financial analyst and you won't truly know what happens until it happens with the economy. And that's just what these things are. We can say that, okay, well, this has happened in the past, something similar to this, and so we're gonna have the market go down for a little bit, then it's gonna go up after this amount of time. And yeah, that probably will happen, but it never happens exactly how people predict. So no matter what I say and no matter what other people say, you just have to understand that, again, you're not truly gonna know what is gonna happen until it happens. So definitely, I guess, finish this video off with that mentality and don't just be like crazy and fearful and start trying to sell all your stuff. I'm not trying to do that. What I'm trying to do is just hopefully get a little bit of financial literacy out to people in the automotive community, because I haven't seen a whole lot of other automotive YouTubers talking about this, and that's completely okay. I think it's great that they're still making fun, entertaining content so that people can kind of forget about everything that is happening in the current economy. But I also think that we need to just be aware of what's happening, and we need to make sure that we make the right choices right now so that we don't put ourselves, or I guess back ourselves into a corner where we obviously just completely screw ourselves over financially, because I think that's the worst thing ever. And with what I do for a living, I don't want that to happen, because obviously if people get to the point where the economy completely collapses and people can't buy cars anymore and this and that, well, I've got nothing to film anymore, right? So I do have that thing where I just don't want that to happen. And so my final tips and what I would say is obviously look into your current employment. And I've said this across several videos. See how, I guess, sustainable your current employment is. Just how sustainable is the income? How sustainable is all of that? And obviously make sure that you can save up some sort of emergency fund. Just, we don't know what's going to happen over the next few months. Nobody does. But again, I wouldn't just concentrate on this fear. All I would do is be prepared, but don't let this fear just completely control your whole life. Be prepared for what's going to happen though. So again, make sure your source of income is stable, build up some sort of emergency fund. And I definitely wouldn't be just, I guess, living at the edge of your means right now, because a lot of people have been doing that for the last 10 years where they're basically living paycheck to paycheck. And that's the whole reason why the government is having to do the stuff that they're trying to at least push bills to give people money, which I think is awesome. Again, I think that that's awesome to be able to help people. But again, instead of pointing fingers, I would point the finger at yourself and say, what have I been doing for the last 10 years to save up money and prepare myself for some sort of economic strife like what is happening right now? And if you haven't been doing any of that, then I know that some people are gonna say, well, it's a little bit too late. It's never too late. Start doing that kind of stuff now. Somewhat set yourself up so that if things do come crashing down, which again, I don't think they're going to, but if they do come crashing down for some reason, that you can somewhat be prepared for it, and that you don't have to have drastic lifestyle changes and that just the whole world falls apart for you. So hopefully that was helpful to you guys in some respect. And again, I'm not trying to fear monger, and I'm not saying that I can predict everything, but if I was in any one of those situations, I would just be very careful and I would try to set myself up as much as possible. And I haven't been able to work for the last 10 years because I'm too young to do that. I've been working for about the last 7 years, and I've built up a strong emergency fund, and I've made sure that I have a sustainable income source, which yes, it does vary to an extent, but honestly, I'm probably one of the least worried people out of what's happening. And that's just because I've set myself up so that I don't have to worry. And that's what I'm hoping that this video does, is it helps you guys kind of have that realization. And I hope that after this whole situation, a bunch of people have that realization that maybe they should set themselves up a little bit better financially, so that when stuff like this does happen, that you're prepared for it. And that, you know, I'm not trying to say that I'm better than anyone else, but that you can just continue your day-to-day life completely normal like I have been doing. I literally haven't changed anything in my life since any of this has happened, and that's just because I set myself up financially and I made sure I was in a good spot. I made sure I had a dedicated savings. I made sure all that stuff. So even if YouTube crashes and burns, I don't make any money anymore, I have enough saved up to live off of for a very long time. And so again, I'm just sitting back here relaxing. I will see all of you guys in that next video.